We will start our event. I hope that everybody took headsets. So I will be giving to you general information. You will have time. So friends, we are very glad to see you. It's good that you when you are involved in our World Food Day. In terms of technical issues, we will have YouTube translation interpretation online, and in terms of the headsets, I told you the information. We will have speakers, guests that have a good command of English, so you have mandatory to take your headsets. It's easy to use them. We have two channels. First channel Ukrainian language, and second channel is English. Now we can have a solemn ceremony of opening. The World Food Day is anniversary of our FAO. It's a global event of FAO and one of the popular international days in the calendar of UN. Today, World Food Day is celebrating for the 40th day and 78th anniversary of the founding of this organization, FAO. Today's World Food Day is under the motto "Life is what is life? Life is food." And in order to increase the awareness of the sound use and our availability of a big value resource is under danger because of increase of population, urbanization, economic development, and the consequences of climatic crisis. Until World Food Day in Ukraine, FAO and WFP, together with the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food of Ukraine and other partners and friends, is arranging event World Food Day 2023, a forum of resilience of agrarian producers. So this event is organized in three other cities, in Kyiv, Lviv, and Dnipro. In Kyiv, where we are now. So before to invite first speakers to our scene, it would be correct. Let us support each other with applause. Thank you. Before invitation, the first speaker, I'd like to say that conditionally, visually, we can divide our event on three parts. First part will be just speeches, official, solemn opening, and then we will have two panel discussion. Within the framework of this panel discussion, there will be participants. I will ask questions, but I'm sure that they can tell us. We will probably save some time in case. Then at the end of the event, we will have an opportunity to have a Q&A session. As I am a moderator, I have to watch the time, so we have a little delay. So without other words, I'd like to invite the first speaker, Director of Diplomatic Academy, attached to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nadia Nadolenko. Good afternoon. Good evening, esteemed friends. I am really very glad to greet you in our Diplomatic Academy attached to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. At this beautiful event that we conduct in partnership with the FAO of the United Nations in order to commemorate the day, which is having bigger meaning for all of us, a World Food Day. This event serves important remembers about criticality of food security as fundamental right of human being, but as a founding block of sustainable development today, we are united by a joint effort to resolve the issues with which millions of people face around the world in their daily fight for the access to sufficient and safe food. FAO of the United Nations now is at the avant-garde of this mission, working hard on creation of the world where nobody fell asleep hungry. And their commitment to the cause and desire to innovations plays important role in forming policy and initiatives that would impact positively on the community around the world. In our interconnected world where the boundaries are diminishing and the challenges are becoming transnational, cooperation and diplomacy are of the utmost importance. So our important duty today is to build future where every person, regardless the obstacles and circumstances, will have the right for food security. So let our joint efforts will create a way to a world free of hunger for next generations. Thank you, Gennady. It is a very correct messages which we will raise today. I will invite under your applause, First Deputy Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food of Ukraine, Mr. Taras Vysotsky. Thank you. I'm pleased that we have an opportunity together with the partners, and here we have partners who are constantly support Ukraine to celebrate World Food Day. Ukraine historically, especially during the last decade, all the time is a donor from the point of view of provision of global food security. Constantly producing more than it has internal need and provide this food to other countries of the world. Unfortunately, during the war, in certain aspects, we have critical challenges that are dealing food. The topic today is about water. Water is also very important. Starting from the disaster of the blown up of Kakhovska dam and further on working on the provision of the access to quality drinkable water, potable water, even for the population of Ukraine in many oblasts or regions. We never could thought about this before. So we need to be united in the conditions of global context that everybody should do its contribution, which will help. What we can do from our side, also other countries that have experience of fighting, counteracting challenges of the war and support us, and we are thankful and we are convinced that this is the essence of humanity, which is ready, first of all, for the development and support. So in this day, World Day of Food, I'd like to wish that indeed we will have challenges, but with joint efforts, like we did it before, we had an opportunity to overcome them from the side of Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food of Ukraine. We are thankful for the support. We continue to work in all chain of producers of food here present, consumers, suppliers, exporters, all those who provide the conditions for quality production, international partners. And we are sure that our cooperation shall be only increasing since the challenges would be increasing, not only in the context of the war in Ukraine. I'm pleased that today we have an opportunity to take participation in the event, to discuss and to fix joint steps which we can do further on to implement, not just celebrating, but doing a real contribution into the development of world food security and provision of food. Thank you. We are pleased that you are now at this event. We invite head office of FAO in Ukraine, Pierre Vautier.
Друзі.
Friends.
Thank you very much for being here this evening. And today, I want to thank our colleagues for being there. Thank you, Gennady, for welcoming us today in this very beautiful academia. I think it's always a very big pleasure to have here. And I want also to thank the colleagues from Ministry of Agriculture and Food, Policy and Food, sorry. And Taras, thank you very much for being here today representing the ministry. Thank you also, Vitaly, to be joining her also today. I think it's a great pleasure to have you here. And I want to salute all the effort of the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food for all the last year, from the very first day of the war, when in fact they tried to help farmers, but also small rural households to face the new situation that was there. FAO is glad to have stand, and I think Food Program is also together with us, are glad to have standing and supporting your actions. I have to say that I am here since 1 year and a half. I arrived a few weeks after the beginning of the invasion, and I have to see that from the beginning, what I have to remember is the resilience and the volunteer of all the Ukrainians, from the countryside, from the small villages, the youth, the elders, from the governments. I have been an inspiring moment for me to see all the Ukrainians joining together in order to fight the conditions and the impact of agriculture. Because you have a double responsibility, and the ministry has a double responsibility. The first one, of course, is toward all the Ukrainians and towards their food security. We know that the war destroyed a number of assets, destroyed a number of possibilities for Ukraine. While it is one of the biggest exporters of grain and cereals supporting the food security in the world, it becomes still supporting the food security has to address its own problem internally. And I am very happy today to say that together with the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food and the government at large, we did work night and days, I can say, in order to address all the problems presenting them. Most often, nothing was planned. Everything was coming at the last minute. The events, we have to face it, reorganizing. And I think today I want to thank all the colleagues in the ministry. I know it was not difficult. We are with you, we are standing with you from the national level, but also in the oblast level, I think everybody. I want also to thank all the small farmers which are still working and producing as we speak today. And I want to have a thinking today, because we are the almost first day of the winter. As we see the sky today, I think we have been blessed to have a mild end of the summer and autumn, but now we are entering into the winter, I think it's true. And you have to think that on the front line today, families, elders populations will have no way to move outside where they are. They're going to face this winter like last year, and once for the second time, it will be difficult for them. I'm thinking for all the Ukrainian populations, which is in Donetsk, in Kherson, in Zaporizhzhia, in Mykolaiivska, also in Sumy, as well as in Chernivtska. I think it's important not to forget them today. I think we're standing to them, and I'm sure that all together with the ministry, with all the rest of the Ukrainians, we're going to help them in order to have the winter as best as possible. For me, it's very important. Because at the end of the day, for us as FAO, but also with World Food Program, what we do believe is Ukraine is in a very temporary situations. We hope that the situation is going to get quickly better, that we can reorganize internally the food security, the things we have to address to the poorest of the population, the most affected, but also reestablishing the capacity of Ukraine to feed the world in the future. We think that it's very important that you continue to do the excellent work of exporting the grain that you have to do. And then at the same time, as I've said today, it's also the time also to think about the future. In the future, water will become a problem. And I think, Taras, you were mentioning that very, very precisely on it. And also, of course, the sustainability of agriculture, which is in the future has to be think about. And I know that already Ukrainians, think tanks, I mean the professionals are already thinking about how to imagine the future agriculture more sustainable, more equitable also for all the farmers in Ukraine, what we can do more transparent system. I want also to celebrate the fact that since 1 year we have the State Agrarian Registry, which has been created for the Ministry of Agriculture, which is a way that everybody can register and to have access to support transparently. And I think this is also a very great achievement from the ministry. So while they were replying to the emergency, at the same time, they are building the future for Ukraine. And I think this is an important element. And I'm sure that my colleagues from our food program will mention that better than me, but also an element that we do, we have unfortunately the Kafkovka Dam open. You know that tomorrow, under the leadership of the government, we're going to present the results. So I invite you to attend to that, or at least to read what we're going to explain, and the solution we offer, we propose in order to address the problems going to be there. But also the demining. We know that with a large part of the land has been affected, and not even talking about forestry. And together with the government, we're trying to see how we can address practically, give answer to the farmers in order to restart the productions as much as we can, because it is good for Ukraine and it is good for the world. Thank you very much. I want just to mention the last and not least, but also for aquaculture, fishery. It's an important element. It's Vitaly, you are here. I cannot say nothing about that. And I think it's important because, as I have the occasion to see, is you are also, because it's a decision of Ukraine to participate to the integration to Europe, I think you're also preparing the accession to Ukraine, or the possible candidacy, but maybe we have the answer on December. And I think it's also very important to mention that, time to time, is in fact, while we are addressing the problems now, we are also thinking about the future to have a better life in a better world for Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Дякуємо і вам, П'єр. Оплески лунають на вашу.
Thank you, Pierre, and the applause to you. And the next is Mariana Ward, the head of the deputy of the head of the FAO organization in Ukraine. Thank you.
So thank you, Pierre. Thank you for that lovely introduction. You know, the World Food Program has actually a long-standing relationship with Ukraine, but we've been buying your foodstuffs for decades. In fact, in 2021, we bought 5% of your grain production. But since the beginning of the war, you've needed us in a different way. You've needed us to provide food to people on the front lines, which we do to the tune of providing support to 2 million Ukrainians every single month. And working, for example, with FAO and the Swiss Foundation for Demining, we are working to bring small farmers and basically rural communities back to the possibility of living, producing, and taking this country back to where it should be, which is a major producer. Even throughout the war, we have been buying in this country. We moved out almost 900,000 metric tons since the beginning of the war, and we will continue to stand with Ukraine's farmers to procure as much as we possibly can to support the world. I mean, I think what we need to remember is that the war in Ukraine is a war against the country, it's a war against the people of Ukraine, the culture of Ukraine, the economy of Ukraine, and lately, in particular, against the agribusiness part of the economy, which is the part that is closest, of course, to our hearts, but is also an incredibly important driver for this country and for the rural communities. Without people staying in the rural communities and producing food, this country's economy will go down, and that simply cannot happen. It cannot happen for Ukraine, but it cannot happen for the world, because we want Ukraine to feed its citizens, but we also want Ukraine to feed the citizens of the world. Today is actually a celebration of the hard work of so many people who are here to make this happen and make Ukraine return stronger and better. Of course, the Ministry of Agrarian Policy, the farmers, the agribusiness sector, FAO, WFP, and so many of the individuals in this room who work tirelessly, day and night, as Pierre has mentioned, to keep things moving. I really want to thank you for your work and dedication, day in and day out, because Ukraine will, with all of our support, continue to feed the world. Thank you very much.
Дякуємо і вам, Мар'яно.
Thank you to you. You know, and to have specific humor, that our interpreters are so loud that you don't need the headphones. And you have another speaker today, and he is Chiara Deci-Bardeschi. He is the head of UNESCO organization in Ukraine. You're welcome.
Дякую, and
Thank you.
delighted to be with you all here today. Maybe UNESCO is more, I would say, less familiar and generally present in this kind of event in Ukraine, and we are really happy to be this time with you and to start this, I would say also to expand our cooperations and family in this sense. This year, as you know, the Food Day has been dedicated to water management, sustainable use of water and natural resources. And indeed, we all know that is probably nothing as vital as access to clean, drinkable water, especially in these difficult circumstances in which currently Ukraine is. The full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February and the war in Ukraine is aggravating the risk for natural and man-made water-related hazards, causing not only severe damage to water sector, but also, and we know, to increase and aggravating vulnerability to hydrometeorological extremes. And we know how also it has been mentioned in a way how climate change is extremely connected. And globally, UNESCO actively engages in initiatives aimed at sustainable water management, including through advocacy, education, research, international collaboration and capacity development in integrated approach to address management challenges in this sector. And let me recall the program of the UNESCO Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, which started in 1975, actually just a few years before this celebration of the World Food Day, which actually look at this dimension that I have mentioned. And based on that, in Ukraine, UNESCO has just started recently to collaborate with the national authorities and local partners in increasing resilience and this research approach to integrated management of water. The colleagues before me have spoke about the importance of ensuring proper and sustainable management of food, of water. We all recalled also already the importance. This is a celebration. It's a celebration of resilience, of Ukrainians, of the efforts, all this work that has been done in more than 1 year now in time. But let me invite you also to look around you, to look to all these photos which are in the room, where food is depicted, but we see also women, we see children, we see Easter eggs decorated. And why I'm saying this? Because certainly in Ukraine, more than in any other countries, food and water hold a special place in the tapestry of culture and all its traditions. Traditions going from generation to generation, and all this, what we call intangible cultural bearing, which is really the ties of communities and all our histories, social relations, and even in terms of what we bring to the future. So, said this, I cannot not recall you that Ukraine has been actually one of the most famous, I would say, now items on the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage in need is borscht culture and traditions since 2022. And all these bearings and treasures recipes are part of all this larger context. Let me also recall, before closing, that this is also for us a special moment because this year, 23, it's recalling actually 20 years celebration of this convention, of the 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage. And quoting the convention, intangible cultural heritage is transmitted from generation to generation, is constantly recreated by communities and groups in response to their environment, their interaction with nature and their history, and provides them with a sense of identity and continuities, those promoting respect for cultural diversity and human creativity. I conclude the thank really also FAO, in particular FAO, for organizing the ministry and actually our host here for this important day here, and also for federating all of us in this day. Thank you very much. Дякую.
Дякуємо і вам, Кіара Деці Бардес.
Thank you, Chiara Dezzi, and I would like to thank you to everybody for those who present here the information. So thank you. We finished the first part. The introduction part is near to be finished, and I would like to have my deputy here and to change some of the furniture here because we will start our discussion right now. And I would like to invite some of our participants. I will have some general questions to them, but some of the participants may have questions to each other. But I think they will recover some more information here. So, friends, I would like again to reiterate that suppose there is a person who hasn't headphones, please address the entrance of the hall and use this possibility. We have two channels here. The first channel is English, the second one is Ukrainian. So our first panel discussion, it is the food production during war, challenges, perspectives and renovations. The support of UN. So I would like to invite Mr. Taras Vysotsky, who is the deputy of the Minister of Agriculture of Ukraine. So take the microphone, please. Switch on the microphone. I have some questions to you. So the director, Maria Didu, who is the director of Ukrainian Agricultural Forum. You are welcome. Please join this company. Luis Amaya, the head of FAO program in Ukraine. This is our tradition, by the way, to have these participants. The fourth participant is the head of the logistics of UN, Stefano Paveri. Please, applause. And the fifth participant is Yuri Melnik, the head of the Supreme of NHB. So the headphones are operating with everybody. Say something into microphone, please. Taras? Yes, everything is okay. So according to our program, you have 8 minutes for each question. Suppose we have some time economy, some questions will be arised. Suppose we have time. So Taras, we would like to ask you a question. What are the main challenges of agriculture in Ukraine? Here, you are the representative, the insider of agriculture, and you may go into details.
Дякую за запитання.
Thank you for the question. In fact, as a matter of fact, here we need to divide in two categories, because we understand there are short-term challenges because of the war, and there are long-term challenges that were available before the full-scale aggression invasion, and they appeared and will be in place in future. So in order to fit your timing and to save time for second panel discussion, I will be laconic. If we will look at the challenges literally that are important, first, in general, the agrarian sector today, during this year, it has a complexity of survival from the point of view of economy of production. Unfortunately, the previous calculations show that this year, opposite the previous 2022 was complicated, but at the end the result, as average, we had the cost of production 0, +5 in general. It was at least without loss making, not loss making, but preliminary calculation this year show that the loss may be from $1 to $3.5 billion per year. So even now we don't see optimistic forecast that there will be a zero rentability by sector or plus. Again, this is short-term challenge, but he's very critical. So if we would not go through jointly, there is a big risk of absence of opportunity for further certain campaigns and production. And it is, first of all, the first reason is war, because the basis for that is very expensive logistics. Why name such a range from 1 to 3.5 billion of US dollars? It's all dependent how we would jointly, together with partners, and what kind of events we will have in future, if we will be able to provide, to ensure security from the point of view of going through the winter, accessibility to energy, because the work on generators is possible, but it will be more expenses, and from the point of view of increase of potential export, first of all by the routes, which would minimize the cost of production. Here we have from Black Sea ports to opportunity to export into European Union using transit ways, but the elections, political elections, which have been held yesterday, if all this would be positive things outcome, then there is a possibility of minimum loss, but the continuation of next campaign. I do hope that next years we will cover these losses. Otherwise, the most negative scenario is, of course, important, and consolidation is important, but coming back to, again, where our partners may help, it will be, this period will be difficult for all, but for small producers it will be the most hard one. So where there is an opportunity and where programs of free of charge of support with the seeds, fertilizers, and other means of production in such conditions that would be continued, it would be useful. I will note the program that we discussed, and when we have other food risk this year in Ukraine, we have the most minimum amount of wheat of productive quality to produce bread, etc., for consumption. So this tendency again is worsening, and probably during next year it will be more percentage of reduction. So one of the solutions may be here to sow the autumn wheat, winter wheat. We will have better quality better food quality by all the parameters necessary, but it has a less crop capacity and a less production. So potentially, if we will launch the program of support of soon winter of spring wheat, which will be one of the short-term challenges for the production, because provision of bread is one of this is a key product for population, and we should react. So these are two short-term challenges, but they are which are critical from many aspects. And again, I will come back to long-term challenges. We should fix it. Everything which is related to the quality of soils at the territories where we had hostilities and where hostilities are now, where the impact of the blow up of Kakhovska dam, where there is the mining processes. This is a long-term challenge for tens of years, and we started already some joint activity in Kharkiv. We have a pilot, but here we need many work to have to do in order that this long-term challenge to overcome, to recover these soils and lands, and to have an opportunity to cultivate to maximum accessible area quality produce, because in the world these squares of lands are limited. We need to do everything possible that in Ukraine this land should be recovered. This is one of the long-term challenges which is to be overcome. And the second challenge is water, because about 1 million of hectares we have, it's 8 minutes, about 1 million of hectares was dependent on irrigation from Kakhovska dam. So it's a long-term challenge to resolve. Thank you. Thank you. Another question, short question. We add, of course, to save time for our colleagues. We had the decree of President of Ukraine in terms of to ensure food security strategically. So what strategically the ministry plans from the point of view of this presidential decree? This is a question for an hour. It should be short. To be short, we will execute the decree of the president. Super, it's short. And then when we have all the panel discussion, we will hear your answer. Maria, good afternoon. Question to you of a general character. What is the main problem from the point of view of private sector? Well, the main problem, hello to everybody, Taras mentioned, and I commented that probably he will take the most interesting topics. 2022 was extremely complicated for all inhabitants of Ukraine, but the agrarian sector had a financial pillow, so to say. And preparation 2021, so 2022 was not so complicated like 2023. Unfortunately, 2023 is not so complicated, which we will have in 2024. From the positive things, I can tell you that Ukrainians, we will be not hungry. There will be enough of food, but what is the price of this food? Increase of prices for fuel, fertilizers, logistics, it's all will be a challenge, and for 20 years in a row, agrarian sector with some cultures like in grain, sunflower, it will be loss-making. This is the first, and secondly, it will have a negative impact in future on financial status, and we can talk even about the bankruptcy of a big part of agrarian sector. It not will be this year, it will not be next spring, but it will have a tendency and accumulative effect from what was started in 2021. It is complicated not just financially, because all these inputs are expensive into agrarian sector, and a huge increase of logistics of produce. Again, by spiral, we are coming back to the fact that we have the absence of financial resources to conduct business activity. And in addition to all of that, 2 years in a row we work for survival. 2 years the agrarian sector saves on mineral fertilizers, on investments into agrarian equipment, which is sooner or later will have effect. We have already lower indicators of the quality of wheat, and we have reductions of the volumes of agrarian cultures and grain in particular. But in such complicated conditions, we have blessing from God, having a good weather, and regardless the reductions due to the weather, we have a large, in comparison, whether it will be good weather next time, or we will have the forces of a farmer coming out and desire to go into fields, because Ukrainian agrarian is geared to work, but the conditions should be in place. What we need now, this is the lack of financial resources for small and medium-sized producer is really a morbid one. We need international donors' aid for demining, because we lost a big square of lands, and we need to recover irrigation system because of a blow-up of Kakhovska dam. We lost in Odessa the resource, the intake of water. It will impact on the quality of produce and its volume. But we don't give up. In 22 frontline regions, they were working under shelling, under bullets shot, and we will be with food, and we will be with wheat. It's complicated to hear, but thank you for the truth. Another question, probably you will have so the private sector and the comment from international partners. I will start from the classification, because I represent a medium and large producers consolidated position standpoint. The small one, very small producers, they need financial support in order to have soon campaigns or fertilizers or seeds. If you take medium-sized producers, they require support in the mining, financially, or with the aid of specialists, the miners. And then coming up by steps to large agrarian business, which is as well is working in very complicated conditions. We need financial resources, because the lack of these financial resources, the absence of, and we are very thankful for the ministry for cheap loans, lending, but this money we lack as well, and now we should define points of loss making and to survive. And then Ukrainian farmer will rise. It's strong. They are strong. I agree. And this emotional topic, yes, is very good. Please applause this. I think that the partners heard. Do you hear translation? So question to Maria is simple. What private sector expects from the partners? Alternative. So we heard now about the problems from the ministry and private sector. What FAO does in order to resolve these challenges?
Щойно от пролунали.
Thank you so much. I hope that you can hear me. I was hearing the panelists, and I think that it's important for us to understand first what the country has as a priority. And I think what is important for the producers is, of course, our priority. So And I will talk not only on behalf of FAO, but also on behalf of all the partners that are working with us, other UN agencies as well, which are trying to convey support to the different levels. When you were saying, and you were explaining what should be done for the different types of farmers, I think that there has been a tremendous effort led by the government to mobilize support towards those particular activities. How best we can understand the economy of the small-scale farmer in the current situation is not challenging and is even compounded by the situation which is affecting them globally. Rising prices of fuel, rising prices of fertilizers, plus the logistics. Same with the middle size, same with the large companies. I think that as partners, our role is first to understand and convey information to other countries, to other partners which are able to mobilize support in different ways, and in the way in which the government and the private sector and also the farmers' union consider it is most relevant for them. So the first thing which is important for us is to take into consideration that opinion. Beyond, let's say, going further, analyzing what is best or what is not best, and I think that the stakeholders here, plus the ministry, have been very clear expressing the priorities. Some of the priorities are, of course, more relevant in the short term, particularly to keep the production level, which is very important, but not at the expense of the viability of the business of the farmers, which is actually the situation that we are actually seeing is happening, that the farmers, if they jump into production, if they are in a small-scale production, they might not be even able to reach break-even levels, and they will be getting in debt. So I think that the options that we have at hand now is to understand much better those economies and translate that into actionable interventions, such as, for instance, support the production in the spring. For the private sector, it's clear that the need is to access to land, which is productive, and support the demining effort. To do that, we are trying to facilitate better information for better decisions. Try to understand what's happening with the soil, if the soil is contaminated or is not contaminated, with mines and also with chemicals derived from the explosions and the war-related activities. And if we are able to produce that information and convey this to the different stakeholders which are interested, that will go a long way informing not only the efforts for the mining, but also the possibilities to really claim back that land for production. But we need to put all elements together, because this contamination is also associated with natural resources. Soil and water are also at risk. And it's very important for us not only to understand the contamination related with the war, but also the best way in which we can resume, if it's possible, after decontaminating those lands, production in a more sustainable manner. Reducing, of course, practices which are not sustainable, but also trying to build back better in a more green fashion. So I think that it's important to identify financial instruments, and we are trying to do that as a partners, convey, let's say, interest from different investors around the world through the different donors. They are working with their own private sector, and also passing the information to those investors that are maybe interested to come in and chip in, contributing to the efforts of recovery. I think that the other area is behavioral change, and we need to also reach out to farmers. And there are different programs and projects which are already in that angle. For us, the way in which the war has affected the capacity of farmers to produce has also triggered a lot of areas which have been interested in terms of how we produce or provide information to those farmers back. Is how they can cope better, how they can be more productive, how they can optimize their logistics arrangements, how they can adopt practices which are more sustainable with the natural resources that they are using every day. And then walking them through to the new reality, how they can better work with the current situation, having lands demined, what kind of solutions they can devise based on the actual reality they are facing. So last but not least, just to wrap up, I think that it's important for us also to identify concrete instruments, and I think that there are already initiatives to provide financial support, because all these things sounds good, but without financial support and without actual capacity to reach the market, the discussion is void. So for markets, I think that the efforts of the government in trying to build up or strengthen the solidarity lines has been great, ensuring the capacity of the laboratories in the country to meet the standards required by the European Union and also by other markets is essential. Improve productivity in a more sustainable fashion is essential, and investments should go in that angle. Sustainable energy provision as well. So I think that there are opportunities that are on the table, and also the way in which we de-risk the investment of the private sector to invest, continue investing in the agricultural sector of Ukraine are essential. So all of our activities from the UN system, from FAO, from WFP, from UNESCO, is heading to that angle, to facilitate the support required by that farmer, by that company, which is supplying food to the country and to the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. Дякуємо. Дякуємо, Луїс. Марія, може, у вас є запитання якесь уточнююче?
Maria, probably you have a question. So I would like to reiterate that there are maybe some questions from audience, and these questions may join the discussion, please. We heard the reaction from the producers from FAO authorities, but there are some more representatives here who help those who suffer from war, the business. So I would like to give a floor to another representative of the World Program, please.
Question for me. Okay.
Яка вже допомога була, і яка ще планується?
We don't have the translation. Anyway.
What assistance to Ukraine is planned?
In the World Food Day, WFP play in Ukraine a double role, as Marianne has mentioned before. The first preoccupation, of course, goes to the food security in the country, and we have learned that there will be enough food grown in the country for the future, so food will be available. We have done the same research. We work with other partners, including the Kiev School of Economics, and we have done a projection for the next 8 years with a two-case scenario, with the war finishing in 2023 or in 2024. We've gone through the key commodities, and we got reassurance through this exercise, which is a part of our value chain analysis for certain commodity, that there will be food available. So in that sense, the only preoccupation for us is to make sure that food commodity being available, do we have enough purchase power in the community to have access to the food? And is where we are focusing at the moment our efforts. As mentioned by Marianne, we are supporting an average of 850,000 beneficiaries per month in cross to the front line. And we do that partially in kind, so distributing food commodity that we buy in country. So that's the first contribution. Food, the farmer grow the food transformer producer produce the food commodity that we distribute and we buy them. And that's the first objective. And that in kind is distributed in the belt of around 50 kilometers from the front line, where the more critical situation in terms of food security, and we try to make sure that there's food available for everybody. And then we are working with other ministries like the Ministry of Social Policy and the Pension Fund of Ukraine, and we have reached an agreement where we are going to make sure that the level of money received by the pensioners is going to be enough in every oblast affected by the war to have access to a proper food basket with the right diet and content of nutrients and micronutrients. So that's the first impact, and I would like to underline again that we are buying everything in Ukraine except for 1 or 2 commodities that are not available, like salt. Unfortunately, the country doesn't have enough, and that we imported, and some processed canned meat that the country cannot produce in those quantity at the moment. So that is part of our strategy for now. So we have built confidence in working with all the partners, including the Minister of Agro-Policy and Food. Food will be available. Our job is to make sure that the most vulnerable part of the population will have access to the food, and we are trying to do that, and I think we've been quite successful so far. There's one other little resource that has not been mentioned in the previous intervention about food security in agribusiness. We do need the people in the rural area. And without that, if you're big, if you're medium, if you're small, without people, you cannot really produce in the field. So one focus, particular focus that we are going to start for next year, 2024, is we're going to work with the community in the rural area to work on livelihoods projects to make sure that there is a way for the people in the field, in the villages, to stay there and have access to food and access to vocational training and other tools that we can deploy. The project that Luis has mentioned in our interest in freeing land, agricultural land from remnants of war and landmine and UXO is exactly to make sure that those communities that were living on subsistence agriculture, they are still able to grow their own vegetable. And we think that it's not a key contributor to the economy of Ukraine, but it's definitely one of the reasons why this country has never been, for example, in a status of micronutrient deficiency, because there is a variety in the diet, there is the capacity to eat what you produce, and that's extremely important to keep the community there in the field where they are needed by the businesses. So that's one aspect of our contribution. And then I would like to put on my other hat, which is I'm a buyer in this country. I'm from supply chain. We buy food commodity across the world, and Ukraine has been historically an excellent partner. So we have looked at the food system in the country, trying to find out how to address these challenges. And I think, yes, the preoccupation for the production is extremely important, but there is a secondary aspect, which is you need to be able to export, because the consumption of this country with 35 million, more or less, people, will consume a very small percentage of the production. So what we do with the rest? Not all the sector, and particularly looking at grain, have been very strategic in the past, if I allow me to say that, to look at transforming those raw commodity in other type of products. And in moving around the country, meeting with the agro-businesses and logistic companies that provide services to the agro-business, it's clear that transformation has to become a more predominant component of the agro-business in Ukraine. So transforming wheat into wheat flour, for example, is one of the effort that we have engaged, and we have brought on board also USAID, who has started a number of projects with the millers in the country, and we have now a good number of millers that can produce much larger quantity of wheat flour compared to pre-war status, and we can also fortify this wheat flour, so giving access to different market to the millers and therefore the farmer that are farming the wheat. And then the logistic aspect is significant. I was really looking at our numbers. We are working with the Minister of Agro-Policy and Food through the Grain for Ukraine, and we are now engaging to the export of 25,000 metric tons of wheat for Nigeria. And I went back to the numbers. We were given a rough quote on Friday to export this commodity through the Danube. The value per metric ton is $155, which is almost 100% more than before when all the ports in Ukraine were working. That's a significant number because the raw commodity and 100% increase in transport cost is really significant. Maybe less of an impact on the sunflower oil, where you have a value of $1,000 per metric ton, and therefore a 5% increase in the logistic cost is not that damaging. But if you want to export wheat and your cost just for logistics is $155, it's not a profitable business. It can be for any big, small, medium. So I think that's one of the big concerns. But I've seen reaction from the businesses in Ukraine. I was in Lusk last Friday. We were participating to an event organized by USAID with the local Oblast Milling Association. They've done very good progress in identifying and building the dry port there that will give access to the port in the north, and not only in Poland, but other ports. And they've done a study together with the Kiev School of Economics, proving that that corridor that could transform food commodity up to Spain, today for the next 5 to 8 years is still cheaper than going back to the Black Sea and export by sea. So there are alternatives, and I think, as Luis mentioned, it's worth to all work together to explore and identify really what are at least those solutions to stabilize the situation, even before looking too forward and try to fix everything, because it's not fixable at this point in time. So at least to stabilize, and I think that's our message is, let's try to stabilize as much as we can what we can do, and in the meantime, we prepare the plan for the future.
Дякуємо вам. Можна так.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Applause, please. We pass to Yuri Fedorovich. First of all, to what extent your reaction as a representative of a large business correlated with the standpoint of FAO and WFP? Full support. But look, first of all, on behalf of our company, I'd like to thank to participate today here and to be a panelist. Secondly, to greet us with this not a jubilee, but it's a memorable event for our company because we are involved in food production. What I would pay attention to or add. First of all, thanks that presently we can state that in main tracks we have support of international partners. This is in humanitarian, political, military area, but also in economics and financial areas. So not all issues are resolved as like we would like to have resolved representative agrarian sector, but nonetheless we have the basis. We will have new requests from businesses, new opportunities of our partners would emerge, and for me, the main thing that we should catch up with the instruments of international partners and be ready to accept them and to use them, but not just announce the need. I'm not criticizing, but sometimes that we have a need and under our need, because we need it, please provide us. So we need to form duly right, and on the example of our company, there are positive solutions in terms of lending from international partners. The only thing that we have to fight for this, because nothing comes easy. So we have to work on these issues. Secondly, this is we cannot here divide on stages. Today, from the point of view of business, half a year we will be in business, then we will aid to military, then we will defend our facilities. We need to do it simultaneously. Each day, be present in the business, in the field, but we need to produce, we need every day to think that we need to aid the military because we need victory, financial support for our military. We need to think about our workers, how to substitute them, because on the example of our company, out 2,300 been called up to ranks. We need to substitute these people because they were called up for defense. pay taxes and think that the communities also require attention, and they look at businesses because there are needs with the shelters, work of schools, kindergartens. Another track, emerging work with vets and their families, because this is already emerged, and they look at business. We need to be present there, and business cannot divide this on phases. A year, the 3 months I will be doing this and that and that. So we need to do it simultaneously. There should be enough of human resource, financial resource. We need to manage it because it's extremely responsible. It is imported every day. And probably from our experience, I can say that we have interesting experience to work with FAO. And these projects, they were projects of support and development communities and local agrarian businesses. Not big, but we did it with FAO. We have thoughts for 2024 season. Another point to mention, in conditions of war, somebody remembered there will be in December, there will be a decision on the start of negotiations with the European Union. For us, with business, we have to adapt in doing business in conditions of EU. We fight for this since 2013, and we shed blood for that, and now, and for the business, for it will be from one hand a challenge, from another side opportunity. I'll not tell you about these opportunities, but this is our shall be a new history, a new test for agrarian business to go through, because it gives a chance and opportunities. Thank you. You touched upon my second question. We understand that there is a challenge related with the duties of the country candidate to EU. What agrarian business should do to ensure this integration, accession to EU. Together with the ministry, government, and parliament, which should adopt the relevant legislation, we need to get conditions that from one hand would be doable, from the other hand will open to us some possibilities. One feature. I'm just listening. We produce not only grain and oil. From the point of view of food, the food that we produce, our partners produce, this is dairy products, meat products, and we also would like to be present at export markets because we are advocate to requirements that the EU have. So this is one of the tracks which we with ministry think about, because I understand that the new markets is not easy to enter them, but Ukraine is not grain and oil. Ukraine has opportunities today to have a broader look at food from the point of production and sales of produce with value added, value added, let's say, of processed products of food industry, but not of the agrarian sector. Thank you. Please applause. Now it's dependent on you. So we can ask question from the audience. We have a question from the audience. So please introduce yourself and ask your question shortly, please. Rotislav Fortuna, FAO, WFP. I'd like to ask you a question to the ministry and to Yuri Melnik as representatives of the business. You opened and raised this problem. If you want to look at the problem of export of grain, we can look further and transfer from to animal breeding track. How we can do it? From grain to animal breeding, which will provide new workplaces, added value, and new opportunity to export, because grain is very expensive to export, but but the crops is expensive, but whether the ministry helps to produces to develop animal breeding and move forward. Systemically, we support animal breeding.
Яка частина йшла на тваринництво.
We have within our plans to recover this track. Now we have grants for winter houses, greenhouses, for processing of ready produce, including animal products, to launch grants to recover to recover the number of animals. It's a limited resource, but as long as we find finances, we launch this process further to have a positive result for agrarian development of our sector. I know that MHP, Mironivsky Хлібопродукт, is a leader in business. Grain is maximum cheap, meat is maximum expensive. So, do you plan record profits of the company? I will try to make it shortly, but in order to develop husbandry, animal husbandry, we need, like to build vessels, we need to have investments in order to build facilities where we can maintain animals. It's important and relevant. It's for sure according to the requirements of the European Union. This is first investment, secondly time, and of course in our company has plans and we declare them. We announced that we received a loan from IFC for building of biogas plant. I wouldn't simplify it, that only animal husbandry, this is expansion of opportunities of agrarian sector. Presently, we have production of energy for the account of agrarian production. We will expand biogas plant to reprocess manure, that the company will become more energy independent. This kind of model of balanced production with vertical integration. But in order to that, we need to have time and resources. It's not easy to do. We have plans if there will be the support of state and international partners, again, markets. We need to understand why we do it, where to sell, what are the conditions. It's also important, and presently, today, it's a joint task of the Ukrainian government, ministries, and the business, because this plan should be coordinated. Thank you for coordination. Hard times, a large unemployment, we need to fight and give people working place, and animal husbandry may give it. So, thank you for the question. I think we also will have another question from the audience. Please raise your hand if you have a question. No.
То немає. Да, тоді давайте, будь ласка, подаруємо оплески.
So please applaud to the participants, to our leaders of the panel discussion. To Mr. Yuli Melnik, thank you for productive discussion. Please give hand to everybody. I think that some hashtags will appear. Friends, we will shift to the next panel discussion, number 2. This is the water management resources discussion, the creation of the condition for safety usage, the recreation of water resources traditionally. Please give applause to Vitaly Golovnyak, the Deputy of the Minister of Agriculture of Ukraine. Maria Shpanchik, please give hand to Maria Shpanchik, the head of the Department of the Monitoring of Water Resources, Bruno Bikudas, this Mykola Shevchenko, the owner of the fish agriculture, Bogdan Popov, the leader of the ecological research station from Глибокі Балки, the expert of water management. Good afternoon to everybody. So only one microphone is working, am I right? Yes, the second is working as well. Okay, so we will shift to the questions. The questions will be general. Suppose you have some questions, please ask the questions. Suppose we will have time economy, it will be very good. So, Vitaly Alexandrovich, the question to you. You are the vice head of the minister, which actually is responsible for water management. What is your view on water safety here in Ukraine? Thank you. Today we have discussed the question that Ukraine is a key country and key guarantee for production safety. Everybody is built on agricultural sector. For the key problem, for the key things here, the land and the water. As far as the land is concerned, we didn't have any problems, we didn't experience any problem, but with water there are some. That's why the water today is used in agriculture for watering, for the fish management. And if we are speaking, if we view the location of water resources in Ukraine, we see that the water supplies in Ukraine is not stable. We have some parts of the territories which need some artificial supplies, artificial engineering connections. That's why this unstable location spots, it actually leads to the problem that in the 1980s that the special water system was built, and hydromeliorization is one of the topical question in agricultural sector. And I would like to reiterate that agricultural sector can do nothing without water. If we view the engineering net that was built in 1960s, 1980s, unfortunately it is not in the full use. It is not effective, it is not energy effective. That's why in order to continue to be a guarantee of the safety, of the water safety, the ministry in 2021 launched the project of reorganization of water supplies, which actually predicts the reorganization in water supplying and access to water of business bodies, and this approach which is used now, it is internationally adopted, and it is systematically adopted in international margins in terms of business. That's why this law predicts that the responsible body of water management, of state authority, actually accepts all the nets for monettes, for the future users, for the future customers, for agricultural sector. This is the first reform we actually promote. We also responsible for the reform which actually was launched in 2022. We understand perfectly well all the aspects of the agricultural aspects of the water supply. That's why we use new approaches, we use new views, and we use new approaches to water supplies for the understanding what is going on and what is agriculture deals with. Thank you. We shift to the next participant, please, Maria. Actually, we reiterated several times today that unfortunately Kakhovska station is ruined today, and Ukraine today needs additional water supplies. What the water agency is planned for diversification of water supplying? Good afternoon to everybody. First of all, I would like to congratulate everybody. And today, what is put here is the water that is a product. I fully agree with it, because every day we wake up and the first resource we use in the morning is water in our everyday usage for our basic needs, to satisfy our day activity. But unfortunately, in Ukraine, water is viewed as a resource. And the situation today, as far as the quality of water and the quantity of water, is different from what we have in terms of water. Kakhovska's station is one of the most terroristic attack example, if to take into consideration the field of water supplying. This is our 2 years experience spans in the sector of economy. This resource is lost, unfortunately, as far as water in terms of water supplying. As the diversification of irrigation systems, today the program is launched and alternatives are viewed. What can be done? On the one hand, this is the approach to the underground waters, and another approach is the surface waters. The experimental project for the hydropower plant in Mykolaiv, which hasn't suffered much from terroristic attacks, especially in the terms of Kakhovska's hydropower plant, and all the supplies are changed. The authority actually discussed different moments as to the works which are done in the field of hydro energy, and the plans which are ready today in the field of water supplies and diversification. They are tremendous, but I would like to reiterate that the fact that Ukraine on 90% depends on water, and all the needs, 90% were actually supported by the surface water, which is not actually adopted. That's why we need a general strategy not to depend from the surface waters. We have the experience of European countries. We have to develop the scope which is supported naturally. Thank you. We fully agree with you. And the question to you, Bruno? Pure water. Pure water is very important in all the fields. But let's speak about the supplying of water management, pure water, about supplying of pure water. Can you unveil a bit this topic, please?
As part of UNICEF, UNICEF has several programs running in parallel. The program in which I work is called WASH. WASH represents water, sanitation, and hygiene. And as such, our main, let's say, partners in general are the vodokanals, the Ukrainian vodokanals. There are more than 2,000 Ukrainian vodokanals in Ukraine. It's a very fragmented industry sector, if you want. The Ukrainian I need to give you a picture first of the Ukrainian water sector in general for you to understand the situation in which we are in today. The Ukrainian infrastructure is an inheritance of the Soviet times. Most of the infrastructure is from the 70s, from the 80s. The processes also, the mindsets sometimes. And you can even still find, if you go around, you can still find the pumps and machines with the logos from the Soviet Union, okay? We're talking about very energy inefficient equipment. The sector in general has not received any significant funding for the last 30 years, and that's really catastrophic. And you can tell, all the infrastructure is rusty, the civil works are really in bad condition, and that reflects on the water that is being produced. There are many aspects here to touch. I will try to touch them all. The first and more concerning for UNICEF is actually the water tariff in Ukraine. The water tariff is set by the national water regulator. It's supposed to be reviewed every year, but in the last 2 years, it has not been reviewed. The last time it was reviewed, it was before the war. And it has not been updated yet. And that means that all the costs that are contemplated in that water tariff has not been updated. As you probably know, electricity costs have gone up, chemical products have gone up, manpower has gone up. And that means that I would say 99%, if not all of the water canals in Ukraine are in red right now. They are accumulating very large amounts of debt. And that translates, of course, to the water quality that's being produced. Just to give you an idea, about, I would say, a third of all the water samples that were tested in 2021, already, even before the war, were non-compliant with the Ukrainian national standards, and that is very concerning for us. And those are from the water canals themselves. We are also looking, as UNICEF, very closely to the other sources of water that are not so closely regulated. For example, the shallow wells and the boreholes that people that are not connected to the water canals they use. We have detected that at least in 50% of all the shallow wells in Ukraine are contaminated with nitrate. This is more than 50 milligrams per liter according to the Ukrainian standard, more than 10 if you look at the European standard. In some cases, reaching up to 500 milligrams per liter, which is crazy. And nitrate is particularly very concerning because it's potentially very dangerous to small babies, to children. In other problems that we face with the water canals is the increased consumption that they have on chemicals, especially because of the poor condition of the surface water that most of them are drawing. I would say in all of the Ukrainian major rivers, the pollutants possibly from agriculture, I would say, and talking about nitrogen and phosphorus, they make the situation particularly difficult in the summer. And we have these algae blooms, this microscopic algae, they grow out of control. It's very expensive to treat them. It requires more chemicals, and we are there in the front line to support the water canals with these chemicals. And we see it hurts us, it hurts the water canals, especially given the situation. The other point that I would like to mention, because of the let's say, lack of transparency when it comes to the quality of the water, is that we have far too many agencies in Ukraine that are stakeholders somehow in the control of the water quality. Only in terms of, I have some examples here. We have more than 20 agencies that regulate one aspect or the other of water in Ukraine. We have, for example, when it comes to water quality, it's the Ministry of Health. When it comes to the water tariff, the national regulator. When it comes to surface water quality, Ministry of Ecology. If we're monitoring water quality in schools or kindergartens, it's a state consumer service. if we see water as food, for example, but if we see water as an element of health, then it's the public health centers or the regional CDCs. So the water sector in Ukraine, I would say, still has to overcome a lot of challenges in terms of, well, first, number one, funding. Second is in terms of fractioned management. Also, the 2,000 border canals that we have in Ukraine, they don't respond to a central agency. They don't talk to each other. So it's really difficult to coordinate any national action if we don't have them all working together. I hope that answers your question.
Абсолютно так, так і є. Дякуємо, що розкрили цю тему. Можна оплески.
Thank you very much that you unveiled this topic. Please, Mykola, I would like to hear your story. The story of the resilience of agriculture.
У Миколаївській області. Я просто
Working. By the way, I'm from Mykolaiv. FAO provided generator 48 kilowatt. Let's hear the story, and you will see the story at the public TV broadcast that was arranged by FAO for World Food Day. But we can hear this story today. Good evening.
Добрий вечір. Мене звати Микола Шевченко. Я власник рибного.
I am owner of fishery in Silo Rybakonyevo of the Mykolaiv region. In 2015, our track is to cultivate fish like whitefish, and we sold Kherson, Mykolaiv, and in other regions before the war. We sold 50 tons per year.
Ринку збуту.
Because of the war and occupation, logistics increase, blackouts, blown up of Kakhovska Dam. It was prohibited to sell fish in Mykolaiv region.
По реалізації продукції.
So we had losses in sales of our fishery, and we actually been providing aid to our military today. We a little bit recovered sales of produce in Mykolaiv and other regions. We are actually adding young fish into the ponds.
А також плануємо взяти
So these little ones. And we also have a charity events to 300, 400 kg of little ones to put them into the ponds and into the rivers and lakes. So I'd like to thank FAO from United Nations for the support with the provision of generator, which was really needed to us in this very hard time. So peace and goodness to all. Thank you for the support. Within 2 years you will see this video.
Ну і тепер, да, до речі, нехай так і буде, як ви запланували.
So let's these plans come true. Okay, Bogdan, you have the floor. I read the history in English. You know how to preserve the water, how to use the water. Can you tell us about some innovative approaches to water conservation in rural? Okay, I will try. My name is Bogdan Popov. I am head of a research station, which is a network, one of the station in network in Veliki Balki. It's an interesting place. It's not very long from Kiev, and this is our advantage. You can look at these approaches, which I would shortly tell you about. And this is our task, to provide you with practical examples, except that we are a scientific center that is researches biodiversity, biostationaries, but our task is to move our science forward to communities. So we are located in the Rzhishev community, and we work for this community. So research, development, and implementation of these innovative approaches oriented to water preservance and food safety, security in communities. In terms of the water, you mentioned innovative approach. I tell you, it's not innovative approach, which I'm joking. We are the front line of the technology, which is tracing back 1 million. So nothing new which we can propose. It's real new edge cutting. There is nothing about. This is what people used. It's a good news. We have everything. Absolute knowledge to ensure water supply, food, and energy. We have all. What is new in this aspect? Well, ecology is a new thing, science, and I'm an ecologist. So we unite ecologists. This is holistic approach when interconnected things create unified holistic approach when everything is interconnected with everything, a holistic method. So this holistic management, this is what is practiced. There is Iron Survey Institute, which is based on animal husbandry, but this is holistic management. It's very efficient. So how to connect all of this in one thing, and secondly, how it is related to the context, because we don't have any universal approaches. It is packed to specific conditions. Oh, nice. It's so loud. But if to try to be short message, which I'll try to do, we need to collect rainwater. This is a call. Please collect rainwaters. You cannot be super engineer. It can be done by a common citizen. Tender women, so they can collect board water. And this is the resource which is not actually doesn't work. And for me, 20 years ago, I worked at the farm in Australia. I went to Australia and worked at the farm. I was surprised that everywhere there are reservoirs, tanks for board water, and ponds as well. This is what we don't have. And in fact, I put a goal for me to bring this topic to Ukraine and work on this, that the water should be collected. And due to the figures, if I would illustrate, 50 meters of square rooftop can collect about 20 cubic meters of board water. So agree, 50 square meters, it's a small rooftop. It's a plume, it's projection. It is serious resource. These reservoirs or tanks, it should have a necessary volume to be preserved. Another news about water, it can be stored. Water doesn't spoil because it's a general stereotype that water is a mineral, as you know. It's a H2O. It doesn't spoil. If you have organic additions, microorganisms, weeds, etc., and may rot. You can control this for the count of light, excess of light, and we have worked out long-term world experience. And Of course, it's understandable that tanks are important, and this is a direct method, the best way and the most efficient to collect and to store any water, not board water, not raining water, which we have in the system. This is in soils. Soil is the best tank for the water in general. And this is dealing not only with water, because soil, we need to recover soils, we need to preserve them, what we have, we need to work on that. There are, of course, other methods. How much time I have? I'd like to illustrate, because I thought that there is an opportunity to show you a photo how it is looks like. We have methods like the method of land reclamation, which is a very powerful approach. Equipment. These are water channels or swales. So in fact, this is a kind of ditch which is done by perimeter horizontally, and the surface flow is kept due to this and is left, and it's trying to saturate into the soil. So all the water is in the soil. So the soil reserve is replenished. Interesting topic with these drains. We can do them small, or anybody can do them. So we had workshops last year, and I really was shocked. We had a workshop for women. It happened so that we have come for a seminar. Only women came because somebody is involved in the war, fighting. So we had practical seminar on the work, how to make these drains on the territory with the aid of land mining equipment, excavator. We had a guy come in, how to communicate with this excavator guy. I was so surprised that the women, learned this issue, and at the end, they've been freely working on the landscape and do these drains. They've been not afraid of these theodolites, instruments, etc. It's easy, but it's visible. Thin drains or ponds, but coming back to soil, soil is our main potential where we can preserve water. And this is increase of organics and humus in soils. And this is the deals not only with water, it will give opportunity to increase the cost of productivity of the soil. One of the interesting approaches, it's not new, of course, it was practiced before. This is the use of biochar. This is wooden coal that is done from the different waste that we get this from waste, and it can be used in order to increase the humidity in soils, because a lot say that it is panacea, but it increases humidity in soil. So work on this biochar and how to work with this waste. It is a strong potential. Finally, this is a creation of circled systems, that all the water ecosystems, this is turnover of substances. We need to create a system which would circulate all of this, and secondary repeated use, because I am involved in eco-sanitary, in purification of water. This is my main occupation. It is also potential big resource how to this wastewater which is produced, how to recover it, to purify and use it again, so to say recycle, factually for irrigation and for land reclamation. To cultivate food. It's not only water, because it bears a lot of nutrients, and we lack fertilizers, nitrogen, potassium. So we have new instruments. We need to planning, integrated holistic management, which would specifically elaborate the approaches. If any questions after the panel, I can show you personally, individually, the photos. Thank you for your attention. So all new is a nicely forgot past. You will show the photos individually, but if you will have the excuse to all our panelists, we have little time. So if you have a question.
What is your name, please, and who is to be addressed? Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Nova. I'm the representative of an organization. The question is to the Ministry of Water Supplies. I would like, first of all, to give my thanks to all the producers in Ukraine, especially at the territories which were liberated today, and with the challenges that actually all the farmers face today. I'm from Kherson region, and I communicate and support with all the farmers, with all the representatives of agriculture from Kherson region and Mykolaiv region, and they actually told to me about the problems which they faced. First of all, this is Russian occupation, and this is the robbery, and this is the question with the irrigation. The topic of water today is the problem with the equipment, with the irrigation equipment, because with non-official information which we have today, that all the equipment was either ruined by Russian occupation or robbed by Russian invaders. So the question is that if we have any plans with the partners, with international partners, to give all the necessary equipment as leasing for the farmers which work on liberated territories, or do you plan any ways of cooperation to support this irrigation system, especially in the territories of Ukraine which were liberated and which suffer from the climate reasons, especially in the south regions of Ukraine, to supply necessary crops. In order to supply the crops, it can do without irrigation. Thank you for your question. 2 weeks ago, I have a chance to communicate with the farmers in Kherson region, and it happened that I experienced this question of equipment. This question is of utmost importance today. They stay without any equipment, and that's why our ministry promote the communication with donors to supply on the conditions, either on the terms of leasing, especially this question of water equipment. We have some projects which are going on thanks to international support, to international donors and sponsors, as to Buffett, they supply us with all the necessary equipment, and the problem is with the land reclamation equipment, and we try to supply the soil equipment to supply to farmers. As to the main techniques is concerned, this year we have the program with the budget dotation, and for the next year we have the same program. 197 million is supplied for the producers of agriculture, those who are working on land reclamations. For the next plans, 2.5 million are planned, so people will have financial compensation. As the military background is concerned, for the native technique, native equipment, again we have the budget. So we work on this respect. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Please raise your hand. You're welcome. No questions? So I would like to reiterate that during the coffee break you may ask the participants. So applause to the participants, to the panel discussions. Mykola Shevchenko, Bogdan Popov, Ms. Maria Shpanchik. We are very grateful to those who participate in discussions. Please give a hand to everybody. Thank you very much for the event which we have today. Many topics were discussed. So now we will have a coffee break. Please communicate in non-official context, in non-official atmosphere. It will be very interesting. Thank you very much for the challenges which we have today. They are again faced. We are on the right way. Water is our life. Water is our food. Thank you. Applause to everybody. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Зустрічатися і обговорювати.